Hi, everyone. It's Mrs. Dindorf. I'm sorry again that I can't be there this week. I'm at the Allen Conference today, and I promise you I'll be taking lots of pictures with authors and sending them your way and hopefully bringing back some awesome books. But for right now, we're going to take some time to go over introductions and conclusions because that's the next step in your essay. So here we go. So we're going to start by talking about introductions. Before we start, I'm going to show you a quick video with a few thoughts on what not to do in an introduction.
We speak student.
What not to do in an introduction, a la Schmoe. The introduction is arguably the most important part of the essay. In fact, we're arguing it right now. Your teacher is going to have to read the whole thing no matter what, but don't you think they should want to read it? Here's what you should never do in an introduction to make sure your teacher actually enjoys it. They'll thank you, maybe with a better grade. But first of all, you should never not be confident. Always sound sure of yourself. If you sound unsure of yourself by saying something like, "in my humble opinion," or "if I recall correctly," no one is going to believe anything you have to say. Basically, if your intro can be summed with a few texting acronyms, it's a bad intro. Along those same lines, don't use phrases like, "in this essay," or "the purpose of this paper is to." What is following your introduction? Pages and pages of an essay. The fact that you're writing an essay makes it apparent that you're writing an essay. You don't need to tell anyone this fact. If there's anything that would grant your essay a one-way ticket to the incinerator, it's referencing the dictionary. Avoiding this is simple. Just don't do it. Yeah, un-Nike. Along those lines, it's also cliche to begin your essay with a quote from someone else. Don't ever have your essay saying something like, "Dr. Phil says, sometimes you make the right decision, sometimes you make the decision right." In fact, don't ever quote Dr. Phil, ever.
I agree.
Your introduction should only be your words. Finally, don't start with your thesis statement. That's like trying to run up the side of the Empire State Building your first day of doing parkour. Work your way up. Best place for your thesis is at the end of your introduction. So those are a few things to not do in an introduction. Don't sound unsure of yourself. Don't say that you're writing an essay. Don't quote the dictionary. Actually, don't quote anyone in your intro. And don't lead off with your thesis statement. Got all that? Following these simple rules will keep your teacher's blood pressure low and might just keep your grade high.
All right. So, few thoughts on what not to do in an introduction. Here's what you should do. Whoop, there we go. So the three parts of an introduction, and specifically the introduction that you're going to do, are the hook, the summary, and the thesis. So we're going to talk about the hook first. So you've got that great paper idea, a solid thesis, some really good support quotes. You've done your warrants. You're on your way. Now, how do you invite your reader into your paper? How do you make them want to read what you wrote? You use a hook. A hook is another word for an attention getter, if you've heard it used that way before. And there are several different types of hooks that you can use. The first type is the definition. Now, like the video said, you don't want to quote the dictionary. And as it says here, while dictionary definitions are okay, most people find them to be quite dry. Try instead to paraphrase or write your own unique take on a definition whenever you can. For example, in this essay about Giles Corey, someone uses their own definition of strength. When we think of strength, we might consider that the Oxford English Dictionary definition is the quality or state of being physically strong. But there is more to strength than this. In the play The Crucible, many characters in the town have to show strength. None do so more than, etc., etc., etc. So in this example, they've taken the dictionary definition, but they've said that there's more to it than that, which makes me want to know as a reader, oh, what more is there? So that is a way that they've invited me in and made me interested to read the rest of the paper. You can also use a quotation. Now, I know that the video you just watched said don't quote anybody else, but occasionally you can come across a quote that is really, 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 really good, but it shouldn't be just any quote. A quotation or paraphrase. If you use a quote, make sure that it's relevant to your topic, your background information, or your thesis in some way. Avoid overused quotes or cliches, or if you must, try to put your own original spin on an old cliche. And again, the most important thing is make sure that your quote ties to what you're talking about. And when I'm talking about a quotation, I'm not necessarily talking about a quote from the play. This could be a quote from someone famous, a quote from a book, from a movie. But again, it should tie to what you're talking about. It should tie to the theme of your paper, that idea, that subject that we talked about in class. So for example, again, essay on Giles Corey. The Buddha once wrote, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." In the play The Crucible, one character in particular has to walk his own path, and that character is, etc., etc. So this person does a really good job of finding a quote that ties to what they're going to talk about in the essay. Another example is the little known fact. The little known or striking fact. Try to surprise and impress your reader with an interesting fact related to your topic. If it's a commonly known fact, people won't be as interested in learning more. And don't forget to cite your research. And this goes, as you'll have seen, from the other intros as well. If you're using something that's not your own words, you need to make sure that you cite it. So here's an example again. For the past 4,000 years, crushing a person to death with elephants was a common means of executing people. And you'll notice there's the citation. Though no longer practiced today, the idea of using weight to crush someone to death was also used in Puritan New England and in the play The Crucible, etc., etc., etc. Another popular technique is the challenged opinion. The challenged opinion, it's a statement of opinion that you intend to challenge. No one can resist a bit of fair and healthy conflict. So you state an opinion, and then you say, that's not always true. Like so. Oh, we're talking about John Proctor now. Some people believe that there are good people in the world and bad people, and that bad people, people of low morals, are always bad, and good people are always good. In the play The Crucible, this view is challenged through the characters who, etc., etc. So we set up an opinion, and then we said, that's not always right. And my paper is going to show this. You can also start off with an interesting story. This is another popular hook, or the other word for it is an anecdote related to your subject. If you have observed or experienced something personally that can demonstrate why the topic interests you, then your reader will likely be interested as well. Abigail Williams. So here's an example of the interesting story. When I was young, there was a boy in our neighborhood who was known as a menace in our part of town. His constant desire seemed to be to get into trouble, and it wasn't until he moved away that the community seemed safe again. In many ways, Abigail Williams, etc., etc., etc. The topic explanation is another hook that you can use. Sometimes a general statement that pinpoints the key issue, fact, or observation that led you to choose your topic in the first place can interest the reader as well. Students face all kinds of problems. So here is an example of the topic explanation. So let's say in your thesis, you're going to identify that you're talking about dishonesty. So maybe you start by introducing that topic idea as such. Honesty seems lost in our world. We live in an age where it seems like secret sins are constantly being revealed about celebrities and politicians. Perhaps that need to out people and reveal their failings began with the Puritans. In the play The Crucible, one man, etc., etc. I'm going to pause here and start again with another video because I'm almost out of recording time. So please join me back in the next video in the series for talking about the rest of the introduction and the conclusion.